It was just another ordinary day for John, a retired mechanic with a heart of gold, until a simple act of kindness changed his life forever. John had always been the kind of man who believed in helping others, even when he had little to give. At 68, he spent his days tinkering with old cars and his evenings at the local diner, where he'd sit by the window, sipping coffee and watching the world go by. That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow over the small town, John noticed a woman sitting alone at a corner table. She was elegantly dressed, her silver hair neatly styled, but there was something about her, a quiet sadness in her eyes that tugged at John's heart. When the waitress brought her check, the woman hesitated, her hands trembling slightly as she reached for her purse. Without a second thought, John stood up, walked over, and quietly paid her bill. "Let me get that for you," he said with a warm smile. The woman looked up, startled, her eyes searching his face as if trying to understand why a stranger would do such a thing. She thanked him softly, her voice barely above a whisper, and left the diner without another word. John returned to his seat, thinking nothing of it. To him, it was just a small gesture, something he'd done countless times before. But as he finished his coffee, the waitress handed him a folded piece of paper. "She left this for you," she said. John opened it to find a phone number and a single sentence, "You'll understand soon." Little did John know, this simple act of kindness would unravel a story so extraordinary, it would change not only his life but the lives of countless others. The woman he had helped was no ordinary stranger, she was Eleanor Whitmore, a reclusive millionaire with a secret mission. And John was about to discover that sometimes, the smallest acts of kindness can lead to the biggest miracles. John sat in the diner for a long time after the woman left, staring at the note in his hands. The words, "You'll understand soon," echoed in his mind, stirring a mix of curiosity and unease. Who was this woman, and why had she left him her number? He considered throwing the note away, chalking it up to a strange encounter, but something about her eyes, those sad, piercing eyes, made him hesitate. The next morning, John found himself reaching for the phone. He dialed the number slowly, half expecting it to be disconnected or answered by a prankster. Instead, a calm, professional voice greeted him. "Good morning, this is the office of Eleanor Whitmore. How may I assist you?" John was taken aback. Hello," he stammered. "My name is John. I think I met Ms. Whitmore last night. She left me this number." There was a brief pause on the other end. "Ah, yes, Mr. John. Ms. Whitmore asked me to speak with you. She's left something for you, and I'd like to arrange a meeting to discuss it further. Would tomorrow afternoon work for you?" John's mind raced. Left something for him? What could this woman possibly have left him? He agreed to the meeting, his curiosity now fully ignited. The lawyer provided an address, a sleek office building in the city, and hung up, leaving John with more questions than answers. The following day, John drove into the city, his old truck rattling as he navigated the bustling streets. He felt out of place in his worn flannel shirt and scuffed boots, but he pressed on, determined to uncover the mystery. The office building loomed ahead, its glass facade gleaming in the sunlight. Inside, he was greeted by a receptionist who led him to a spacious conference room. A man in a tailored suit entered, introducing himself as Eleanor's lawyer. "Mr. John, thank you for coming," he said, setting a folder on the table. "Ms. Whitmore was a very private person, but she wanted you to know how much your kindness meant to her. She's left you a portion of her estate, a significant sum, with one condition." John's heart pounded. "A portion of her estate? I don't understand. I barely knew her." The lawyer smiled faintly. "Ms. Whitmore believed in the power of small acts of kindness. She spent her life helping others in secret, and she saw something special in you. The condition is simple, you must use the money to continue her mission, to help those in need, just as you helped her." John sat in stunned silence, his mind struggling to process the enormity of what he'd just been told. A millionaire? A secret mission? It all felt like something out of a movie. But as the lawyer handed him the folder, filled with legal documents and a handwritten letter from Eleanor, John realized this was no dream. The letter began, "Dear John, if you're reading this, it means I'm gone. But my work doesn't have to end with me. I've watched you for years, quietly helping others without expecting anything in return. You're the kind of person this world needs more of. Use this gift wisely, and remember, kindness is never wasted." John's hands trembled as he set the letter down. He had no idea what he was getting into, but one thing was clear: his life would never be the same. John left the lawyer's office in a daze, the folder clutched tightly in his hands. The weight of Eleanor's gift, both the money and the responsibility, felt overwhelming. He drove back to his small, cluttered home, where he sat at his kitchen table and opened the folder again. Inside, alongside the legal documents, was the handwritten letter from Eleanor. He read it once more, each word sinking deeper into his heart. "Dear John, if you're reading this, it means I'm gone. But my work doesn't have to end with me. I've watched you for years, quietly helping others without expecting anything in return. You're the kind of person this world needs more of. Use this gift wisely, and remember, kindness is never wasted." John leaned back in his chair, staring at the ceiling. Watched him for years? The idea sent a shiver down his spine. How had he never noticed her? He thought back to the diner, to the way she had looked at him, not with the gratitude of a stranger, but with the knowing gaze of someone who had been observing him for a long time. The folder also contained a list of names and addresses, each accompanied by a brief note. At the top of the page was a heading: "People who need your help." John scanned the list, his eyes widening as he realized these were individuals Eleanor had been assisting anonymously. There was a single mother struggling to pay rent, a young man trying to start a business, an elderly couple facing eviction, each story more heartbreaking than the last. John felt a lump form in his throat. This was no small task. Eleanor hadn't just given him money, she had entrusted him with her life's work. But how could he, a retired mechanic with no experience in philanthropy, possibly live up to her expectations? That night, John barely slept. He tossed and turned, his mind racing with questions and doubts. By morning, he had made a decision. He would start small, helping one person at a time, just as he had always done. But this time, he had the resources to make a real difference. His first stop was the home of the single mother on Eleanor's list. Her name was Linda, and she lived in a rundown apartment on the outskirts of town. John knocked on the door, his heart pounding. When Linda opened it, her face was etched with exhaustion. "Can I help you?" she asked warily. John smiled, holding out an envelope. "I think I'm the one who's here to help you." Linda opened the envelope, her eyes widening as she saw the check inside, enough to cover her rent for a year. Tears welled up in her eyes. "I don't understand. Why would you do this?" John thought of Eleanor's letter, of her belief in the power of kindness. "Let's just say, someone once helped me, and now it's my turn to pay it forward." As he walked back to his truck, John felt a sense of purpose he hadn't known in years. But even as he celebrated this small victory, he couldn't shake the feeling that Eleanor's gift was about more than just money. There was a deeper mystery here, one he was only beginning to unravel. John's journey into Eleanor's world began to unfold in ways he could never have imagined. After helping Linda, he turned his attention to the next name on the list, a young man named Daniel, who was trying to start a small bakery but was drowning in debt. John met Daniel at his tiny shop, where the smell of fresh bread mingled with the scent of desperation. Daniel's face lit up when John handed him an envelope containing enough money to pay off his debts and expand his business. "I don't know how to thank you," Daniel said, his voice trembling. This changes everything." John smiled, but his mind was elsewhere. He couldn't stop thinking about Eleanor, who she was, why she had chosen him, and what her ultimate goal had been. The more he helped the people on her list, the more he realized how deeply she had cared for them. Each person had a story, a struggle, and Eleanor had been their silent guardian angel. One evening, as John sat at his kitchen table reviewing the list, he noticed something he hadn't before. At the bottom of the page, written in faint pencil, was an address he didn't recognize. It wasn't accompanied by a name or a note, just the words, "The Beginning." Curiosity got the better of him. The next day, he drove to the address, which led him to a modest house on the edge of town. The garden was overgrown, and the paint on the walls was peeling, but there was a quiet charm to the place. John knocked on the door, but there was no answer. He was about to leave when an elderly neighbor stepped out onto her porch. "Looking for someone?" she asked. "I'm not sure," John admitted. "This address was given to me by a friend. Do you know who lives here?" The neighbor's expression softened. "That was Eleanor's house. She passed away a few months ago. Such a kind soul, always helping others, but never wanted anything in return." John's heart skipped a beat. "Eleanor lived here?" The neighbor nodded. "She did. Quiet woman, kept to herself mostly. But if you needed help, she was always there. She used to say that kindness was the only thing that made life worth living." John thanked the neighbor and walked around to the back of the house. Through a window, he could see the faint outline of furniture covered in sheets. The place felt frozen in time, as if waiting for someone to breathe life back into it. That night, John returned home with a heavy heart. He couldn't stop thinking about Eleanor's house, the simplicity of it, the humility. She had been a millionaire, yet she had lived so modestly, pouring her wealth into helping others. It was a stark contrast to the image of wealth and privilege he had imagined. As he lay in bed, John realized that Eleanor's gift wasn't just about the money or the list of people to help. It was about her legacy, a legacy of kindness, compassion, and selflessness. She had chosen him not because he was special, but because she believed he could carry on her mission. But there was still one question burning in his mind: why had she left him the address to her house? What was he supposed to find there? The next morning, John returned to Eleanor's house, determined to uncover the mystery behind the address. With the neighbor's permission, he let himself in, the creak of the door echoing through the empty rooms. The air was thick with dust, and the faint scent of lavender lingered, a reminder of the woman who had once called this place home. John wandered through the house, his footsteps slow and deliberate. The living room was sparsely furnished, with a worn armchair by the window and a bookshelf filled with titles about philosophy, kindness, and the human spirit. In the kitchen, he found a collection of handwritten recipes, each one labeled with a name and a date. It was as if Eleanor had poured her heart into every dish she made, sharing her love through food. But it was in the small study that John found what he was looking for. Tucked away in a drawer was a leather-bound journal, its pages filled with Eleanor's elegant handwriting. As he flipped through it, he realized it was a record of every person she had helped over the years, their stories, their struggles, and the ways she had made a difference in their lives. Near the end of the journal, John found a letter addressed to him. "Dear John, if you found this, it means you've begun to understand the true nature of my gift. The money is merely a tool, the real treasure lies in the lives you touch. But I know this journey won't be easy. There will be moments of doubt, moments when you question whether you're worthy of this responsibility. When that happens, remember this: kindness is not about being perfect. It's about showing up, even when it's hard." John's eyes filled with tears as he read her words. She had known he would struggle, known he would doubt himself. And yet, she had believed in him anyway. But the journal also revealed something else, a secret Eleanor had kept hidden even from her lawyer. In the back of the book was a list of names, different from the one John had been given. These were people Eleanor had tried to help but hadn't been able to reach in time. At the top of the list was a name that made John's heart stop: Thomas Whitmore. Eleanor's son. John's hands trembled as he read the entry. Thomas had struggled with addiction for years, and despite Eleanor's best efforts, she had been unable to save him. He had passed away 5 years ago, leaving Eleanor with a grief she had carried in silence. John realized then that Eleanor's mission wasn't just about helping others, it was about healing herself. By giving John the means to continue her work, she was ensuring that her son's memory lived on through acts of kindness. But the revelation also deepened John's dilemma. How could he possibly live up to Eleanor's legacy? How could he honor her son's memory while grappling with his own insecurities? That evening, John sat on the porch of Eleanor's house, the journal resting in his lap. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden glow over the garden. For the first time in weeks, John felt a sense of peace. He didn't have all the answers, but he knew one thing for certain: he couldn't give up. Eleanor had chosen him for a reason, and he owed it to her, and to himself, to see this through. With Eleanor's journal in hand, John felt a renewed sense of purpose. He began to methodically work through the list of names she had left him, starting with those she hadn't been able to help in time. Each story was a reminder of the fragility of life and the profound impact one person's kindness could have. One name stood out: Thomas Whitmore. John knew he couldn't change the past, but he could honor Thomas's memory by helping others who were battling similar struggles. He reached out to a local rehabilitation center, offering to fund a new program for those in need of support. The director, a kind woman named Dr. Martinez, was overwhelmed by John's generosity. "This will change so many lives," she said, tears in her eyes. "Thank you, John." But John shook his head. "Don't thank me. Thank Eleanor Whitmore. This was her dream." As the weeks turned into months, John's efforts began to ripple through the community. He helped a young woman pay for college, funded a community garden, and even started a scholarship in Eleanor's name. Each act of kindness brought him closer to understanding the true meaning of her gift. Yet, not everyone was supportive. Some of John's old friends grew distant, their envy and skepticism casting a shadow over his work. "Why are you wasting your time on strangers?" one of them asked. "You should be enjoying your retirement, not running around playing hero." John didn't let their words deter him. He remembered Eleanor's letter: kindness is not about being perfect. It's about showing up, even when it's hard. And so, he kept showing up, day after day, person after person. One afternoon, as John was leaving the rehabilitation center, he noticed a man sitting on a bench outside. He looked to be in his early 30s, his face etched with exhaustion and regret. John sat down beside him, offering a warm smile. "Rough day?" he asked. The man nodded, his eyes downcast. "I don't know if I can do this," he admitted. "It's so hard to start over." John placed a hand on the man's shoulder. "I know it feels impossible right now, but you're stronger than you think. And you're not alone. There are people who care about you, who want to see you succeed." The man looked up, his eyes filled with tears. "Why are you being so nice to me? You don't even know me." John thought of Eleanor, of the way she had believed in him when he didn't believe in himself. "Because someone once showed me the same kindness," he said. "And now it's my turn to pass it on." As John walked away, he felt a sense of fulfillment he hadn't known in years. He was beginning to understand that Eleanor's gift wasn't just about helping others, it was about finding meaning in his own life. But even as he celebrated these small victories, John couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to Eleanor's story. The journal had revealed so much, yet it felt like there were still pieces missing. What had driven her to live such a selfless life? And why had she chosen him to carry on her legacy? John's quest to understand Eleanor's life led him to a small, tucked-away library in the heart of the city. It was a place she had frequented, according to her journal, and John hoped it might hold clues to the questions that still haunted him. The librarian, an elderly woman with a warm smile, recognized Eleanor's name immediately. "Oh, Eleanor was a regular here," she said, her eyes lighting up. She loved books about history and philosophy. But she was also very private. She'd sit in that corner over there for hours, reading and writing in her journal. John followed the librarian's gaze to a quiet corner by the window. The sunlight streamed in, illuminating a worn wooden table and a chair that seemed to have been worn smooth by years of use. He sat down, running his hand over the table's surface, as if trying to connect with Eleanor's presence. The librarian returned with a stack of books, titles Eleanor had checked out repeatedly over the years. Among them was a rare first edition of a philosophy book about the power of human connection. Tucked inside was a folded piece of paper. John's heart raced as he opened it, revealing a handwritten note. "To whoever finds this, if you're reading these words, it means you've taken an interest in my journey. Know this, every act of kindness, no matter how small, creates a ripple that can change the world. And sometimes, the person you help is yourself." John felt a lump form in his throat. Eleanor's words resonated deeply, but they also raised new questions. What had she meant by, "the person you help is yourself"? Had her kindness been a way of healing her own wounds? He spent hours at the library, poring over the books and notes Eleanor had left behind. Slowly, a picture began to emerge, a picture of a woman who had experienced profound loss and had turned her pain into purpose. She had lost not only her son but also her husband, who had passed away years earlier. Yet, instead of succumbing to despair, she had chosen to dedicate her life to helping others. As John left the library that evening, he felt a deep sense of connection to Eleanor. He understood now why she had chosen him. It wasn't just because of his kindness, it was because she had seen in him a kindred spirit, someone who understood loss and the struggle to find meaning in the face of adversity. But there was still one mystery left to solve: the address at the bottom of Eleanor's list, marked "The Beginning." John had visited her house, but he couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to it. The next day, he returned to the house, this time with a determination to uncover its secrets. He searched every room, every drawer, until he finally found what he was looking for: a small, hidden compartment in the floorboards of the study. Inside was a box containing old photographs, letters, and a single key. The photographs showed a younger Eleanor, smiling and full of life, with her husband and son. The letters were from people she had helped over the years, expressing their gratitude and sharing how her kindness had changed their lives. But it was the key that intrigued John the most. It was small and brass, with no markings to indicate what it might unlock. John turned it over in his hands, his mind racing. What had Eleanor wanted him to find? The key felt heavy in John's hand, as if it carried the weight of Eleanor's entire life. He examined it closely, searching for any clue that might reveal its purpose. It was old, its edges worn smooth, and it bore no markings or labels. John's mind raced with possibilities. What could it unlock? A safe? A hidden room? Something even more significant? Determined to find answers, John returned to Eleanor's journal, flipping through its pages once more. Near the end, he found a passage he had overlooked before, a cryptic note written in the margin. "The key opens the door to where it all began. Follow the path, and you'll find the heart of my mission." John's pulse quickened. He grabbed a flashlight and began searching the house more thoroughly, starting with the study. He checked every drawer, every cabinet, every nook and cranny, but found nothing. Frustrated, he stepped outside and walked around the property, his eyes scanning for anything out of the ordinary. It was then that he noticed it, a small, weathered shed tucked away at the back of the garden, nearly hidden by overgrown vines. The door was secured with a rusted padlock. John's hands trembled as he inserted the key. It turned with a satisfying click, and the door creaked open, revealing a space that took his breath away. The shed was filled with boxes, each one meticulously labeled. John opened the first box and found stacks of letters, all addressed to Eleanor. They were from people she had helped over the years, thank you notes, stories of transformation, and expressions of gratitude. The next box contained photographs, each one capturing a moment of kindness, a family moving into a new home, a student graduating, a small business thriving. But it was the final box that stopped John in his tracks. Inside was a collection of journals, each one documenting Eleanor's journey, her struggles, her triumphs, and her unwavering belief in the power of kindness. At the bottom of the box was a sealed envelope with his name on it. John opened it carefully, his heart pounding. The letter inside was written in Eleanor's familiar handwriting. Dear John, if you found this, it means you've discovered the heart of my mission. This shed is where it all began, the place where I first decided to dedicate my life to helping others. The letters, the photographs, the journals, they are my legacy, proof that kindness can change the world. But they are also a reminder that the greatest gift we can give is ourselves. I chose you because I saw in you the same spark that once ignited my own journey. You have the power to carry this legacy forward, to inspire others as I have inspired you. But remember, John, this is not just about helping others. It's about finding purpose, about healing the wounds we carry within us. The key you hold is not just to this shed, it's to your own heart. Use it wisely, and never forget, kindness is never wasted. Asterisk. John sat down on the floor of the shed, the letter clutched in his hands. Tears streamed down his face as the weight of Eleanor's words settled over him. He realized now that her gift wasn't just about the money or the list of people to help. It was about finding meaning in his own life, about understanding that even in the face of loss and hardship, there is always hope. As he left the shed that evening, John felt a profound sense of clarity. He knew what he had to do. Eleanor's legacy wasn't just hers to carry, it was his now, too. And he was ready to honor it. John spent the next few months fully embracing Eleanor's mission. He continued to help those on her list, but he also began to expand her legacy in ways she could never have imagined. He organized community events, started a foundation in her name, and even wrote a book about her life, sharing her story with the world. But more than that, John found healing in the process. The grief he had carried for years, the loss of his wife, the loneliness of retirement, began to fade, replaced by a sense of purpose and connection. He realized that Eleanor had been right, kindness wasn't just about helping others, it was about helping yourself, too. One evening, as John sat on the porch of Eleanor's house, now restored and turned into a community center, he felt a deep sense of peace. The garden was alive with laughter as families gathered for a potluck dinner, their faces glowing with gratitude and joy. John watched them, his heart swelling with pride. A young girl approached him, holding a small bouquet of wildflowers. "These are for you," she said shyly. "Thank you for everything." John took the flowers, his eyes filling with tears. "Thank you," he said softly. "But it's not just me. This is all because of a very special woman named Eleanor." The girl tilted her head, curious. Who was she? John smiled, his gaze drifting to the horizon. She was someone who believed in the power of kindness. And she taught me that even the smallest act of love can change the world. As the sun set, casting a golden glow over the garden, John felt Eleanor's presence beside him, as if she were smiling down on all they had built together. He knew now that her legacy would live on, not just through him, but through every person whose life he touched. And so, John's journey continued, a testament to the enduring power of kindness. He had started as a retired mechanic with a heart of gold, but he had become so much more, a beacon of hope, a keeper of Eleanor's legacy, and a living reminder that no act of kindness is ever wasted. The end.